So, as I was saying beforehand, we have the gospel asking the question, who is this? The devils know, we hear that in this gospel, and Jesus wouldn't allow them to speak. But the disciples, we are asking this question, who is this? Who is this that we are listening to? Who is this whose actions we are watching play out before us? And as we're asking that question through the gospel, again, the book of Hebrews is proclaiming exactly who he is over the top of that. We've heard Jesus call the disciples. We've heard him preach. We've heard him cast out demons, and here now, healing people over and over again. And then he is showing us, teaching us something more, a practical living. He goes off at night, middle of the night, to pray, to be with his Father, to entreat his Father. And this is giving us a bit of an indication for us who are asking the question, who is this, as to who it is. And the Catechism of the Catholic Church helps us. So I'm just going to read you a little piece of it. This is from number 2602. And it says, Jesus often went apart to pray in solitude, on a mountain, preferably at night, as he did in this case. He includes all men in his prayers, for he has taken on humanity in his incarnation. He has taken on humanity. When he became man, he took on human flesh. He took on our human nature. And it isn't just the taking on our flesh as an individual. He took on our humanity. He took on humanity, all of us, in his incarnation. And he offers all of humanity, all men, to the Father when he offers himself. Jesus, the Word who has become flesh, shares by his human prayer in all that his brethren experience. He sympathizes with their weakness in order to free them. And we see that played out a little bit in the first reading. Since all the children share the same blood and flesh, same flesh and blood, and this is kind of to show the weakness, because if you remember, when Peter recognizes who Jesus is, who are you? You're the Son of God. Jesus says, it's not flesh and blood that revealed this to you. Your mere humanity, this broken thing. And Jesus too shared equally in that flesh and blood. Why? So that by his death, he could take away all the power of the devil, which we keep hearing over and over again about in the gospel, who had power over death, and set free all who had been held in slavery by their fear of death. So Jesus takes on our humanity, and he, in his prayer, in his silent prayer, he is offering us to the Lord. His prayer is always one of entreaty for humanity, and he's offering us in his prayer. And so we've got to ask ourselves, when we pray, what are we offering? What are we bringing to the Lord in our prayer? Are we just bringing ourselves, or are we bringing others? And Jesus didn't just bring others, he brought everyone with him in his prayer. And what Jesus is doing is actually, and you hear it here for the first time, he is being the high priest. It is essential that he should in this way become completely like his brothers, so that he could be a compassionate and trustworthy high priest of God's religion, able to atone for human sins. And so what is it that a high priest does? What is it a priest does? A priest intercedes, he petitions, he offers to the Father, to God, the prayer and entreaties of the people. This is what Jesus is doing in his silent prayer. And here the Catechism continues. It was for this that the Father sent him. His words and his works are the visible manifestation of his prayer in secret. It is not the words and the work that lead to prayer, but it's out of the prayer for the people that we see his action, his preaching and his works. They both spring out of that, and that comes out of his priesthood as he takes the humanity which he's taken on and offers it to the Father. Yesterday's reading from Hebrews spoke about, it says, it was appropriate that God, for whom everything exists and through whom everything exists, should make perfect, through suffering, the leader who would take them to their salvation. If you remember, one of the things I said right at the beginning on Monday was that the book of Hebrews may well have been written to Levitical priests who were having a hard time and maybe going through doubts about their faith. And so Hebrews speaks over and over again about priesthood. And today we heard about Jesus for the first time being high priest. But a priest first must be ordained. I was ordained 30th of June, was it July, the year 2000. And Jesus too is ordained. And the language we heard yesterday, leading into the high priest today, spoke about his ordination. Because the language it uses, he should be one who should be made perfect through suffering. And the language of being made perfect in the Greek actually goes back to the Hebrew, where one's hands are filled. It's part of the ordination rite. And so Jesus is ordained, becomes a priest through his suffering. Me through the prayer of the bishop and through anointed with the holy oil. Him through his suffering. He has taken on our flesh. He has taken on the sufferings of the people. He's healing folk. He's freeing them from the power of Satan. And he does that definitively on the cross. He frees us from the power of evil and brings us into relationship with God. How does he do it? Through his offering of his very self, his consecration of himself, as he offers his flesh and blood for the Father, for us.